Welcome to this week's 360 show. It's great to be here. Lots of amazing cricket happening as we speak. The IPL is on fire with some really, really good games. Quickly talk about RCB after that loss against Rajasthan. They came back incredibly strong against MI, the old foes at the Wankhede Stadium, guys. What a fantastic win. Only by 18 runs. I thought they had more of a convincing performance in that game. Some really standout individual performances as well. Getting to 240, Rajat Patidar seems to be in fine form. Very, very aggressive with a bat in hand. Full salt. It's nice to see him in the runs as well. And then Virat obviously doing what Virat does best, scoring runs, setting the base for the players like Rajat Patidar, Tim David at the back end, Shepherd, a few others to cash in. I really enjoyed this, the win from RCB. It's restricting MI to 222. I thought we would have restricted them closer to 200. I felt we deserved that to a certain extent, but credit to MI for not giving up, taking it deep there. All right, so Sunrisers Hyderabad against RR. SRH winning by 57 runs. Very convincing victory from the Orange Army against the very dangerous RR, who lost their first game in this year's IPL. We know all about their openers, Suryavanshi and Jaiswal, and I was worried for SRH's sake because they got a big score, but you never know what's enough there in Hyderabad these days anymore. But they got rid of Suryavanshi early on. They actually got them 4-5 down incredibly quickly. And credit to SRH on a good wicket for their opening bowlers. They struck there and they did so well. Praful Hinge, Pretorius Dural and Suryavanshi out. Sorry, he got them out. He got Pretorius Dural and Suryavanshi out. He was just incredible. I think he picked up 4 at the end of the night. But also Hussain bowled very, very well with those slow balls. I heard the commentators talking about his slow balls, comparing it to a Bumrah and some of the other legends of the game who have a slow ball that can dip a little bit. So they had some skill there. They had some new faces in the team, almost hit the reset button, and Sunrisers are on the go, and they're looking really good for the rest of the tournament. RCB LSG on Wednesday, and I think that is today, if I'm not mistaken. So RCB LSG today. Hopefully RCB will maintain that kind of momentum. It's also RCB in DC on this weekend at the Chinnaswamy. Looking forward to watch them keep that momentum and keep building. We'll cover a little bit more of that later on. Let's talk about FanCode, guys. What is happening on FanCode? Who is going to perform on FanCode? Is Bangladesh and New Zealand ODI series. Maybe a little bit of an anticlimax compared to the IPL, but you can't say so because it is international cricket, and that is top of the crop, cherry on the cake. And for all players out there who are listening, it's always got to be to represent your country. So that is happening on FanCode. Bangladesh taking on New Zealand. It's a 3 ODI series on the 17th of April that will start. And given where ODI cricket currently sits in the pecking order, I think this is going to be fantastic. There's lots of controversy about ODIs, T20s, and Test cricket and where all the formats fit in. But I feel there's still a place for ODI cricket in the schedule, and it's still got to be made priority, especially with the World Cup coming up, guys. It's not that far away anymore, and it's important for these teams to start building towards that. I've covered this extensively about football and other kinds of sport, T20 World Cup the other day, how the teams prepared for that, and how the winning team, I felt, had the best preparation going into that, playing at home as well. I felt like they were accustomed to conditions and they had the right kind of prep. If you want to watch the New Zealand and Bangladesh ODI series, it is on FanCode. Download the app now. There's always plenty of sport happening on FanCode. Copa del Rey final, Atletico Madrid against Real Sociedad. It's the legacies of Simeone at Atletico, and it's the longest serving manager in the La Liga. So lots to look forward to that, guys, and you can catch that game live on FanCode. Also, the Barcelona Open. So that's going to be very, very exciting. Carlos Alcaraz, he lost on clay. He lost his world number 1 spot ranking, so he will be like a wounded tiger, and he'll want to make a comeback there. Guys, there's lots of action. It is FanCode. Download the app. Get your account ready and do not miss any of that. I've got something very, very cool lined up for you today. Why has RCB been performing over the last few years? Lots of people will say Virat Kohli. Others will say it's the bowling attack. Others will say it's the Indian core that got stronger. Maybe it's the fans. Maybe it's luck. But I feel a big part of that is Freddie Wilde, the analyst of RCB. He's got an incredible background, incredible career at Crick Info, Crick Viz. He also loved cricket and played cricket back in the day. And the perfect guy who joined forces with RCB in 2023. And I feel we got the auction absolutely spot on the last few years. Freddie is on the show today, and we'll hear more from him right now. Hope you guys enjoy this. Freddie, thanks for joining us on the 360 show. It's an absolute pleasure having you on here. We have been headhunting you for quite a while, so it's I know you're a busy man, so thank you very much for making time on your schedule.
That's all right, no worries. It's a pleasure to be invited on, and yeah, it's been a while in the making, so I'm glad we found the time to have a chat.
Absolutely, yeah. So first up, very general question. Just you obviously with the RCB camp at the moment, IPL 2026. Defending champ, what's the mood like in the camp, and just your general feeling from your point of view, what the boys are feeling like, and how you see it unfolding over the next few weeks?
It's been a good start. If someone had said after 4 games you'd have played 4-1-3, you'd take that generally. Obviously, disappointing to lose against RR, but I feel like we've started well. We're playing really good cricket. Particularly with the bat, but also with the ball. I think it's you've got to get used to the fact that scores are higher now, and even if you're conceding above 200, you might be doing a good job. So, no, I'm happy with how we've started. But yeah, it's a long tournament, as you know, long way to go. But yeah, strong start.
It is a marathon. There's no doubt about it. I always felt like after about 6 weeks, it would really start to get to me a bit. And funny enough, if you look at the winning teams over the years, they almost start peaking at that time, and move into the strong finish. But it's good you mentioned that. We'll maybe cover a bit more of that later on. Let's just go a little bit back with you and your life and your career. Prior to 2015, ESPN Crick Info. I think 2015 onwards, you were with Crick Viz. And maybe you can just color in a little bit about that. But also, if you want to go further back, your upbringing, the love for cricket and stats and analysis, give us a little bit of a rundown of your career or your life.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, I've always been a massive cricket fan. I played a lot when I was younger. My dream would have been to have been a player, but definitely wasn't good enough for that. And then I started doing a bit of journalism actually, and that's when I did some stuff for Crick Info. I was not really sure where it would lead, but quite quickly I started focusing more and more on T20 just because it was, well, I think it's the most exciting format. It's a really interesting format in the way that it's evolving, and not many people were really writing about it. And once I started writing about it, it became clear that the numbers were really useful to help understand what was going on in the game, because it's obviously so different to longer forms of cricket. And that took me towards working for CrickViz. They were a company who were sort of quite new at the time, but were buying a lot of cricket data, trying to analyze the game. And was there for quite a long time, and they started working with teams, and that's when I got exposed to working with sides like RCB, like Oval Invincibles in the 100, and then more recently I've sort of moved on. I still use CrickViz data, but I'm sort of, rather than being employed by them, I'm employed by the teams I work for. And yeah, now travel around the world working for a number of teams. I mean, if you like cricket, it's a great job. It's a lot of fun. I would have loved to have played, but obviously that didn't work out. This is the next best thing. So no, it's great fun and super interesting.
That's nice to hear the background, and that you actually played as well. It's always, what, the coaches and team members or staff members at least that I worked with over the years that actually played the game back in the day. I would always relate a little bit better with them instead of just people coming in to do the business and move on, and it's great to know that you have a really strong cricket background and the love for the game, and then also worked your skills into that. Let's talk about RCB then from 2023. I'll go a little bit back with the book you co-authored. I'm not sure if it's called Cricket 2.0 or 2.0. Inside 2.0. The T20, 2.0, the T20 revolution. We'll in particular talk about a chapter. I think it's the 12th chapter. But tell me a little bit about the book with Tim Wigmore in 2019 that you guys released.
Yeah, so that was again when I was sort of in that phase where I was doing a little bit of journalism and then transitioned more towards analysis. One of the things that myself and Tim sort of spoke about was like we were trying to understand more about T20 cricket because again it was so different to longer forms of cricket. And we were almost like looking out there to be like, oh, there must be a book somewhere that can kind of teach us about what, where it's different, why it's different, talking to the characters involved. But there wasn't. So we were like, well, why don't we write one? Which we then did. And it very much sort of tries to tell the story of the rise of the format. It's not a sort of heavy analytical book. There's an element of storytelling as well, because there's been some great characters in there, sort of the likes of Sunil Narayan and Samuel Badri. It's about, their upbringing as well, not just their bowling. But that sort of really got under the hood of T20 cricket and tried to sort of understand and explain what was going on. And yeah, one of the chapters in there, as you pointed out, chapter 12, was about the title of it was "Why CSK Win and RCB Lose," which was basically a bit of a deep dive on those two teams as kind of case studies of, up until that point, what CSK had done really well and what RCB maybe hadn't done so well. And obviously a few years later, I was working with RCB trying to remedy some of those things. And obviously last year was satisfying to deliver that title.
It is quite crazy that you can almost write another book just about that the headline of that chapter, and then how it turned around. I mean, we've had some really strong seasons at RCB in the last few years, obviously going out to win it. But let's just talk about analysis quickly. How does it help a team, in your opinion? How do players engage with the data? What is your strong suit? What do you actually do when it comes to data, and how do you get that message across to the team and the players?
So two parts to that question. One, in terms of like what does the analysis do, or what's the sort of benefit of it, and then two, kind of what's my strong suit or the way that I operate. I mean, I think in simple terms, the way that I see analysis might be different to others, but it's kind of another bit of evidence or an input that's going to try and help the team do better. That's the goal, really. I think there's been, analysis has been come into cricket a lot in the last sort of 10, 15 years, and at times can be misunderstood as being, just providing tons of numbers or loads of footage and being a bit overwhelming. At the end of the day, it needs to try and, you need to try and positively benefit the side by providing information, whether that might be, some footage on an opposition bowler, or team selection and strategy, or auction scouting. But you're trying to bring evidence to the table based on numbers and sometimes footage that is sort of part of the think tank. So, I'll sit closely with director of cricket, head coach, scouts, the skills coaches. And it's about trying to give our players the best chance to go out onto the field and deliver. So, it might be in a team meeting. We might be looking at, opposition bowlers. Where do they look to bowl at the death? That information will come from me to try and mean that, come whenever we're playing, someone like Tim David might have a small edge because he knows that, a certain bowler bowls in a certain area. It's those kind of small gains you're trying to make. And in terms of the way that I operate, I think the thing that I try and emphasize most is like, I do a lot of work behind the scenes, but at the end of the day, I try and distill it into a pretty simple message. And I'm quite big on presenting that information in a nice, visually engaging way, because players can at times, again, you don't want to overwhelm them with information. So it might be, what is that key nugget? Make it look good, whether that's for a team meeting on like the big screen or maybe on a WhatsApp message. Even just little things like that get a lot more buy-in than if you send reams of data and numbers and they're a bit like, I don't even know what I'm looking at here. So emphasis on sort of clean, simple presentation and distilling what sometimes can be quite complicated messaging into something that's actually easy to understand.
Yeah, and I think there's a mental approach element to it as well, because I've always found that the more information I were overloaded with, I got a little bit anxious at night about it, and almost used too much energy to a certain extent to certain bowlers like a Rashid Khan. You're not always sure which way it's turning, but you know what's coming. And then I found myself lying awake at night. So there's also an element to that. I feel that the players need to have the right kind of approach to absorb, but then also to let go and to know that you've got the information you need. Now it's just time to perform. And I guess there is someone in the setup that sort of helps the players. I don't know if they meditate or if they have quiet hours or what the case may be. Is there someone like that help them absorb all the information and the stress of the game?
We don't actually have a psychologist at the moment, but I think there's quite a lot of the coaches that we've got in our group. I think have got a really good understanding of kind of the human side of the game. Even director of cricket Mo Boba, I think he's very good at that as well. It's almost understanding that these people are humans at the end of the day, and that they need to not be overloaded with information, but also they've got their own as you said, anxieties and stresses about their own performance. So, there might be a lot of, to bring it back to analysis, there might be a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. Myself and the coaches will sit down often for quite a long time and debate and discuss things. But the players are not exposed to that much of it because, you don't want that. It's got to be relatively condensed. And as you said, you've got to try and help them perform better, not hinder them. Yeah. And there's a fine line there, I think.
Yeah, that was going to be part of a question that when you spoke about you getting all the information together and get it almost across in a visual kind of way. Sometimes I think I would have reacted really well to that. Just on the side, I spoke to Ricky Ponting the other day, and he was talking about the role of a captain and how big that is in the IPL and the decision making. Do you communicate directly to the captain, or do you go via Andy and Mo, and then they convey the message to Rajat to a certain extent, or what's the go-to there?
Yeah, so Rajat will be involved in our bowling meetings and our batting meetings, and he's a sort of active participant there. And I'll have conversations with Rajat, as I would with any of the players, but primarily the communication and the messaging to Rajat will go through normally Andy, Mo, and sometimes DK. So that they're the ones who sort of provide the main messaging. But I'm very happy to pass things over. But that's generally how we've operated. He's got a really strong relationship with those guys. And again, I think that comes back to you can have too many voices otherwise. And I think if I have a view more often than not, and it might be about bowling changes or something that Rajat should know, I will probably just pass that to Andy, Mo, or DK just to make sure that they haven't said something that contradicts that, because you can get into quite messy situations there where it's like, Freddie told me this, you told me that. What am I meant to do? It's just better to just try and minimize that, channel it all through one or two people, really.
Yeah, you briefly touched on auctions earlier. Now, I think I've covered this extensively, where I feel RCB over the last few years have been the most successful at auctions. Just quickly, your role there when it comes to auctions and how you get it right. I mean, there's a lot of planning that goes into this to make sure there's so many different elements and pillars to look at when it comes to auctions. The balance of the teams, the Indian flavor in the side that needs to be the core. You need to get the right overseas that will be fit for a long period of time and available. Just your planning when it comes to auctions and how RCB got it spot on over the last few years.
Yeah, well, I mean, auctions are, from my perspective, they're the best part of my job. I love it. And auctions or drafts, building squads and being involved in that side of things is awesome. And I think, I wouldn't want to sort of sound too big-headed about it, but I feel like we've begun to get a good strategy in place at RCB over the last few years. I think that the sort of process that Mo and Andy have brought is a really strong one. And I'm heavily involved in that. We've got myself, Andy, Mallow, the scout, DK, are sort of heavily involved in that process, and Omi, the bowling coach, we speak to too. And then guys from the ownership sometimes get a little bit involved as well on a sort of process perspective. But it's a good, strong group, and we're all familiar with each other. We know how each other's work, and we've got a process now that we follow. And my role is to bring data and evidence to the table. But what's really good about the way that Mo and Andy operate is they're very happy for me to also offer my opinion. Now, my opinion will often be informed by the data, but it's a very free environment for us all to offer views, and I think that helps. But in terms of the actual strategy, I think you touched on a few things there. I mean, the things that RCB have done in the last couple of years primarily has been a bit more of an emphasis on domestic players, like spending more money on good domestic players, probably spending a bit more money on bowling and trying to distribute the money through the 11 a little bit better. And you'll know from the years that you were there, you had unbelievable batting, and at times you did spend money on bowling, but it was just the team couldn't quite ever get balanced in the right way. And I think that's something that we've done better recently. But it's trying to sort of spread your chips more evenly, I guess, rather than be all in on one area of the side. So spending on Indian players, a bit more of a spend on bowling. And also on middle order power, like that's something too that's quite obvious this year. Is like obviously Virat and Salt at the top are a great opening pair, but to be able to have the likes of TD, Jitesh, Romario coming through the middle is a real strength of ours as well.
Yeah, you bat deep. It definitely helps. Talking about bowling quickly, obviously they win your tournaments. We've heard that phrase before, and batters win your games. So I played in the WCL not so long ago, and Alan Donald and I were part of getting the team together, and we had to uh, get hold of all these old guys but I told him I don't care what the team looks like. I need 5 bowlers at least who are still playing currently and who are in form. So that was the only focus of our tournament, is just to get a bowling team, and we got it spot on. Went on to win it, but it just proves
Yeah,
the point. I told him the batters will think on their feet. We'll get the runs by hook or by crook. Just get us a bowling team and we'll win the tournament.
yeah, yeah.
Quite interesting that. Just generally, sorry, let's go into a little bit of game stuff. So obviously, I played for RCB for quite a few years. There's always been a debate: should I be batting up the order? Should I be finishing? The stats said from overs 12 to 20, I was the best. I always felt I needed a little bit of time to get me in a bit earlier, so I can just bat like a normal human and not try all these funny old tricks. I don't know if you analyzed any of my stuff over the years, where would you have batted me?
Yeah, well, it's a good question, and I no, I definitely did, and it was sort of when you were playing towards the end of your career was kind of the time that I was getting into analysis, and yeah, I remember it being a talking point, and I remember the logic behind why RCB moved you slightly later. Again, some of those numbers that indicated you were better later on. I
Mm,
do think that some of those numbers fail to capture certain things, such as firstly, there's a very important distinction to be made between your record in overs, let's say 15 to 20, and then also your record when you come in that period is important. So there's a distinction there, like entry point versus just your raw stats. So I think a lot of players you'll find will have really good numbers in overs 15, 16, 17, 18, but they might have actually had an entry point of earlier. So that's an important thing to notice.
no.
And then also, like, for a lot of players, there might not be that much evidence of what you could do if you came in earlier. Like the one that I always stands out for me is Josh Buttler with England. Like he obviously opened in T20 cricket after a long time in the middle order and did really well. I always sort of wonder why they didn't try that in ODIs as well. For the same reason, it's like players like yourself and Josh, who are obviously incredibly talented, strong against pace and spin. I feel like giving them more balls makes a lot of sense. And I think the game has kind of begun to shift in that direction. Actually, there was a period of time when it was about putting your best player in the trickiest phase, so to speak. But nowadays, particularly in the modern era with the impact player, it's about you've got to try and maximize every ball. And for that, I think it means there's a bit more of an emphasis on getting guys in earlier. I mean, even Australia with Tim David, right? We saw him move up a bit higher. He was batting at 4, I think, at points last year. And, that sort of years ago, you'd have been like, well, he's a finisher. He's got to bat near the end. But teams are beginning to understand now that that isn't necessarily the way you go. So I'd have liked to have thought I'd have been aggressive and said, AB, come on, let's bat you earlier and get you more time at the crease.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are always numbers you can sort of find to suit your case. And there's never a perfect answer, I guess.
No. Yeah, there are different angles to look at it. I would have loved to bet earlier, especially towards the back end, because you feel like there's to a certain extent a bit of expectation, especially from the fans, your teammates even. You pull it off once when you come in the 13th over, you get a 70 of 30 balls, and then you find yourself at night lying awake in the hotel room thinking, tomorrow I have to do it again and again and again. And there's no
Yeah,
base to work from. And I think all good batters will tell you their best knocks were when they were 30 off 20, just batting normally, assessing the conditions, getting behind the trends of the bowlers, and setting it up for a really strong finish. And the other side of it, I believe at the IPL, the tricky part of an innings of batting, it's not in the first 7 or 8 overs anymore. It's more in the middle, between overs 10 and 14, where you feel like you have to take risks. They bring their best bowlers on again. It's generally spin more often than not, and it's really difficult to just come in. You don't know which way the ball's turning. You don't know if it's turning at all, and you have to go because the expectation is there, and they're expecting you. This is where you're the best in the world, right? You have to go and let the fireworks go off. Anyway, very
yeah.
very interesting that, but I'm happy with your answer. I should have batted a bit higher, especially as an old man at the back end of my career. Come on. I would love to hear your take on right and left hand combinations in those middle overs between over 7 and 15, where I feel sometimes the coaches or the analysts or the captains get so stuck on it has to be right left hand. How do you analyze that? And what's your kind of information that you get across to the guys? Does it always have to be right left when the spinners are bowling? What's your take on that?
Look, I think there are times when it's useful. I mean, I think it's not just about spin; it can also be about short side, long side. I think the left-hander has real value there as well. And look, if you could, it's nice to have a mix of right and left-handers. But I think very rarely would you or should you send the left-hander ahead of a right-hander if they're a better player or they're better suited to that period of the game. I mean, Rajat's a really good example now, right? Like Rajat's an unbelievable player of spin. Whether he's right or left-handed, it doesn't really matter. He's taking down left arm spin as well as he's taking down off spin or leg spin. So I think there's an extent to which you can sometimes miss obvious wins where it's like we're trying to manufacture right hand, left hand. But look, I think it sort of depends on the flow of the game, and there are definitely times when probably less so in the IPL. Thinking about it, like I've been when conditions are a little bit trickier, maybe I think you can see the benefit of it. I don't know whether that resonates as a player, but if the ball is actually turning a little bit more and it's a little bit trickier, then maybe there's a benefit to the right left. But particularly now in the IPL, like there's no way you're gonna not send Rajat in through the middle because he's not a left-hander. Like it just you got and send him in, and players are playing so aggressively, and I think people have got better at taking down spin. Again, even when the ball's turning away, like the negative matchup, so to speak, is less of a thing in that people are becoming aware that they need to take on left arm spin and leg spin. So, and you guys can go into out and can reverse as well. That also helps. So look, I think it's a thing that I would like to have, but I would be very wary of compromising having the better batter at the crease.
My theory with that is always as long as it's an aggressive approach. So to me, generally, it was more with the finger spinners and not so much the wrist spinners. Wrist spinners, I would just send my best batters in, let them play because they can turn it both ways anyway. But when a Ravi Ashwin and a Jadeja and the likes of those kind of bowlers settle in on a wicket that's turning, that's ideally, in my opinion, where you would like right and left so that the lefty can take a Jadu on a bit and be aggressive and sort of get him out of the attack. Basically, that's what you want him to be uncomfortable and not the batter so much. But that's a good answer. That it's nice to know that there's also another game plan. You can send your best batter in. It's not always right left because as a fan sitting on the couch, you feel like sometimes coaches get a bit one-dimensional with that, and they make wrong decisions purely because the analysis says you have to have right left. But it's a good angle that the wide Yorkers and the wide kind of angles or lines at the death overs or
wide lines. I mean, it's interesting. The game the other day, the RCB MI game. I mean, it was a bit like a game of baseball with the way that it was going. With like how many wide. Firstly, it was all about trying to minimize boundaries almost at every point to an extent. I can't remember a game I've watched where I felt so like that was the case. Like I was almost celebrating a dot ball because it felt, particularly early on in the power play, like they had a good start, and it was like Rasic came on and bowled a couple of really good overs. Like the game has shifted definitely in that sense where it's become about hanging on. I think back when you played as well, T20 has had a sort of shape where they generally accelerated gradually towards it. Got to the point where the likes of yourself or Polly or Russell would come in, and suddenly it would be like, right, hang on to your seats, the game's about to go. That is what it feels like now from the get-go, which is a really, it's a very different thing. So I think power play bowling is a fascinating area, and I won't want to give away too much about how we're thinking about it here, but it's clear that teams have got to try and work out how to shackle run rates in that phase, because I think teams are scoring pretty much as fast in the power play as they do at the death now. So it's like there's two phases of the innings that are like that, and you've only got two men out, so it's even more difficult to defend. So I think trying to sort of track that side of it is fascinating, and that's what I love about the IPL at the moment. Is like it's always a great league, but the last couple of years it's been just unrecognizable, and that presents a lot of challenges for analysts and for coaches and for obviously for the players, but for us to try and find out ways that we can get an edge. So
yeah, it's quite a complicated topic that with bowlers. The best bowlers I've faced, I always felt like there's no captain involved there. He's on his own mission, like a Bumrah, for instance. I would feel like he might have a wide line kind of plan in place, but I would never feel comfortable setting up for that. And that's where the vice versa is true as well. When a bowler is scared of the short boundary, it's wide line and it's nothing else, that's the kind of bowler you really take down. So interesting that. But yes, you hit the nail on the head. First 6 overs, I sit on the couch now and feel like I've missed half my career here. I wish I wish I could have a bit of a license in those first 6. Only 2 fielders out, new ball on Indian wickets. It's really good, and it's definitely an area where the batters can take control, but also where the bowlers can win you the game. And I watched Heinrich Klaassen also coming to that wide line stuff the other night, and also the bowlers of SRH doing really well against RR, Suryavanshi and Jaiswal and all of them actually winning the game in the power play. So there's a whole different kind of dynamic to look at. But Freddie, thank you so much for your time. All the best with RCB in the rest of the season. I absolutely love watching the team, especially the last few years where I feel we've got it spot on. And credit to you for getting the homework done and getting the right information across. It's great to see. All the best,
Thanks,
mate.
AP. Thanks a lot for having me on. Cheers, mate.
Such an entertaining interview. I think you guys could see the joy on my face. I really enjoy talking to Freddie there about cricket, about the ins and outs of strategies, about how I perceived analysis and stats over the years. I always felt there's a place for that, but there's also a side of it that worked on my nerves a bit. You almost have to keep the human element to it. And I felt that a combination of the two, yes, get the information in, but there needs to be a time where I switch off and free myself up and remind myself that I'm just a guy who loves playing cricket and who wants to go out there and hit cricket balls. If you can get that balance right, and I feel RCB, along with Freddie, have got that absolutely spot on over the last few years, then it is the perfect match. And so well done to Freddie for playing a big role in RCB's success since 2023. Defending champions, hopefully there's more success around the corner for RCB, especially in this year's IPL. Let's move on to the comms box, guys. Thank you so much for your interaction, for your questions, your comments. I really appreciate it. From the bottom of my heart, without you guys, there's no 360 show. So thank you very much for taking your time out to interact. All right, I loved your analysis on Vaibhav Suryavanshi. It takes serious guts to hit Bumrah for 6 at the age of 15. Tell me about it. Do you think more youngsters should follow his fearless approach? I think he got it spot on against Bumrah by taking that first ball down. I don't think everyone can just rock up and decide you're going to hit Bumrah for 6 off your first ball. Remember, it was Bumrah's first ball of his spell. It wasn't necessarily someone walking in with Bumrah having bowled 2.3 overs in the heat of the battle at the top of his game. Then it might be dangerous just to have a go. I think Vaibhav read that scenario to the T. He knew Bumrah only had 2 outside the ring. He knew the ball was new. He watched an innings prior to that, so he knew there wasn't a lot of swing, a lot of sea movement, and he had a feeling that Bumrah might bowl a warm-up ball, which ended up happening. Nice 132 k's an hour, half volley on leg stump. He was expecting that, setting up for it. And what I like for Vaibhav Suryavanshi moving forward is, and he got out like that just now the other night against Sunrisers, where if you don't get what you're setting up for, I would like for him to develop into a player where he can hold back then and just get the one. And I feel that's one area he can work on. So he set it up perfectly against Bumrah. But what if Bumrah bowled a really good hard length delivery at 145, 143? Does Suryavanshi have the ability then to go, that's not what I was waiting for, pull back, hold back, respect that delivery, get one, and play a normal shot and not stay in that 6-hitting mode? So I think that is the next level for him. But what a fantastic player, what a prospect for the future, especially for India at the international level. All right, next one. This man is teaching what people don't teach, even paying them money. Love you, AB. You will always be in our hearts. Thank you so much for that, Gamers489. Thanks for that. It's always nice to get good, positive feedback. Wonderful. Waiting for the book. Vijay Mallya had made statement that, but for icon players, if SRT had gone to auction, he was ready, empty his purse to get him. Manish Pandey had shown immense talent, and beyond MS Rowett. And KO, you're using a lot of shorter version for the names. He's the only player to still play in IPL right from the first season in 2008. Amazing stories. Every franchise will have similar stories. It will be really interesting to hear them. I fully agree. And I think they should go ahead and get players involved to give those interviews as well. And some of the past owners, get them in for interviews and get some of the feedback of the early days of the IPL. I think some incredible stories will surface, and I think all of us will find it very entertaining. Guys, that's a wrap for the 360 show. Thank you so much for joining. Please subscribe to the show. I would really appreciate that. hit that like button. It helps the algorithms to get the show out there for thousands and millions of people to watch it and to share in the love and the joy of this beautiful game that we follow. I really appreciate your time, and a quick shout out to FanCode as well. Without you guys, this show would not be possible. They are a sponsor of the show, guys. They help me get the show out there. They help me to get a really good team who does a lot of homework analysis about the game of cricket and the topics that we need to cover. And also, they make sure that you guys are happy, that we interact with not all the fans, because that is impossible, but with as many as possible. So thank you, FanCode. We have a great chemistry going. I feel we have the same kind of values, and long may it continue. That's a wrap, guys. 360 show done and dusted. I'll see you guys really soon. And remember, Dale Steyn will be joining me for that live chat where we analyze the games. We give you some predictions. And remember that Red Drop Signal prediction app. Get it ready, because Dale and I will guide you through every prediction and every analysis of every game moving forward for the rest of the IPL. Have a great week, and I'll see you all soon. You've heard it. Go RCB. You've heard it. What is that? You've got it right. You've heard it before. I didn't know what I wanted to say. That's why I just stumbled there. But anyway.